they spent probably 2 months planning this activity. And the girls planned it themselves. They talked to one of the mothers and arranged the cabin, and they talked to one of the girls and arranged the boat and arranged all the entertainment. And this was supposed to be the kickoff to the best summer ever, you know. And didn't quite make it 24 hours. And so,
Lance, first of all, just your reaction to what is this horrible tragedy that's happened. What are the emotions and feelings you're going through?
there is a lot of mixed emotions. It's hard because when we got that first call saying that they found 2 girls in the water, we knew that there were 7 people aboard, and to know that only 2 of them had been found. And Jeff and I were both riding up together. My brother-in-law was driving us, and we just knew, you know, riding up, we got the call that the boat was going to be broken down. We're going to find the kids, you know, and they're going to be on the beach, and they're going to be cold, but they're going to be okay. And right before we went into Logan Canyon, we got the call that 2 of the girls had been found in the water, and they didn't know who they were. And right at that moment was when there's no service, it's dead space, you know, in the canyon. And we didn't find out that it was our 2 girls until we were making the final descent down into Garden City there at Bear Lake. And to find out it was our 2 girls, it's one of those things that you're absolutely relieved about. Just so much relief, and still concerned because you don't know what condition they found them in. You know that they're in the ambulance with the paramedics, but you don't know what kind of stage they're in. And that was the longest drive of my life. We made it there. Unfortunately, we hope the policemen aren't watching this, but we made it there in record time. I think that we made it there in about 25 minutes from Logan to Bear Lake, just through the canyon, and we were passed by my father-in-law. So we made it there in a very, very short time. But that initial descent, even though it was such a short time, that from the initial descent down into the state marina was the longest ride of our lives, not knowing what condition we'd find them in, and just sick because we knew that there were 7, and not knowing what the other condition of the others would be. My wife was on the shore there at the state marina with Sierra's mom and Tiffany's mom, and they got the call from Search and Rescue and 911 that 2 girls had been found. And sorry. My wife said that was one of the hardest things to ever have to sit through, was because they had 3 mothers sitting there on the beach or on the shore, and knowing that one of them, at least one of them, wouldn't have a child coming back on the first initial group that they found. And very, very relieved, very excited to know that your daughter was one of them saved, but at the same time having this gut-wrenching pain and sorrow for those that were still not found, and then even today feeling guilty for wanting to be happy and rejoice that your daughter's okay when you know that there's so much pain and sorrow and suffering going on with the other 2 families that have lost their loved ones. And with us as well. I mean, we're both very sorrowful and pained by losing these dear girls. These girls have been at our house. They've been part of our lives for the last couple of years, and we know them. They're like our own daughters, and so to lose one of them is very tragic. And Sierra was just here a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling her dad, I said, your daughter she always, teasing me and harassing me and giving me a bad time. And so for her to not be here and to not be here in person anymore is going to be a really tough thing. The girls would come over and get ready for a dance, and hairspray everywhere, and girls and makeup and fingernail polish, and Kelsey coming in and seeing all that and doing all that, and and knowing that she won't be here. You know, they'll be terribly missed. And both Tylynn and Tiffany, we met with a group and a counselor this morning, and trying to sort out feelings, how they felt, what their initial reactions were. And both Tiffany and Tylynn said they want people to know that they're okay, and they don't want it to be about them. They want people to focus in on the life of Sierra and Kelsey and the Kapner family. Both of these girls are so loving and compassionate. They don't want people to worry about them at all. They want people to focus on the people that lost the loved ones.
So what is your daughter telling you happened?
Oh, where the nightmare began. No, they were having a great time up at Bear Lake. They had a group of kids that had gone out and played on, you know, the tubes and been boating, and then they came back in. The boat wasn't big enough to hold the mom and the dad, the two adults, and their 7-year-old, and then, you know, all 7 girls that went. So there had been a group that had already gone out to Bear Lake and played. They came back to the shore, and the next group hopped on, and the storm started coming up. And so they decided they were going to go back to the state marina from the North Beach to go dock the boat and be done. And as they started going, the wind started picking up really high, and my daughter said these giant waves is what she called them. We later found out that they were between 6 and 7 foot waves that were coming up over the side of the boat. It started to fill the boat up, and the boat was filling up with water. And Lance Kapner told the girls that they needed to be ready, because if the boat tipped, they had to jump off, because if they were trapped under the boat with their life jackets on, they'd never survive. And so as they were going, the swells of the water tipped the boat and made it capsize and turn upside down. And all of them jumped away from the boat, but they were trying to stay close to the boat, but they were being beaten up by the boat as it's splashing around in the water. And my daughter received a concussion on the head and her shoulder and her foot, and pretty bruised up. Kathy, the mother that survived, she said that she was on the back of the boat near the engine, and as the boat would lift and come down and slam into her, they kept asking her if she was all right, and sometimes she'd respond and sometimes she wouldn't respond, and they were very concerned about her. Finally, the 4 13-year-old girls, got far enough away from the boat that it wasn't hurting them, and she had pushed the 7-year-old girl, Kylie, back to her mother and father, so she was back with Lance and Kathy, and she felt that she had saved Kylie. And she was relieved, because your mom and dad save everything. They make the world all better. And so she knew that if she got the 7-year-old back to her mom and dad, that she'd be okay. And the 4 girls decided they were going to try to swim to the shore and get help. And they were about 3 to 3.5 miles from the shoreline. And as the winds were blowing and the waves were crashing over them, they could hardly breathe. And they got a little ways from the boat, and Kelsey decided she wasn't going to leave her family. She said, "I can't leave my mom and dad and my sister." And she turned around and broke loose from the 3 girls and went back, started swimming back towards her mom and dad, towards the boat. At that moment, Sierra decided that she was a little bit worried too, and I don't know if it was that she didn't want Kelsey to go back by herself, or if she was just thinking that it would be better, safer there at the boat, but she also broke away and went back. And Tylynn and Tiffany tried to talk both of them into staying with them, and they wouldn't. And so Tiffany and Tylynn told them to swim back to the boat, that they would go to shore and try to get some help. And all of these people were in Bear Lake water at 53 degrees, 6 and 7 foot waves crashing over their heads, winds of 70 miles per hour. And they treaded water. Tiffany and Tylynn treaded water for 3 hours, trying to survive, singing primary songs. They were saying prayers, and they said they couldn't hear because the waves were so loud that they were having to scream, and felt very irreverent. yelling to Heavenly Father that they needed help. And they would huddle together and try to get body heat off of one another. And then they'd swim and say, okay, we got to keep going. And when one of them would slow down, the other one would say, hey, you got to keep coming. And then the strong one slowed down, and then the other one became the strong one, and she kept him going. And she said they were so cold, and she said they kept nodding off every once in a while, and she said it felt so calm and so peaceful and so warm. And finally the sun was going down, and as the light was gone, they both had decided to kind of give up, and they were going to lay their heads back just in the water and just rest and take a nap. And hypothermia had already set in, and so I'm sure it was, if they'd gone to sleep, it would have been even more tragic. And my wife and Wendy and Tandy were back at the marina waiting for help, and they saw the sun come out for just a split second. We don't know if it was behind a cloud or just moved around the mountain tip just the right way. But a glimmer of light came through, and my wife and Wendy had said, maybe that'll give the girls a little bit more hope a little bit longer. And Tiffany and Tylin both saw that little bit of light, and it gave them enough hope to lift their heads up and to swim just a little bit longer. By now it's dark, and winds are blowing, and a search and rescue boat goes by them, and they start screaming at the top of their lungs, and the boat turned around, heard them luckily, heard them and turned around and came back, but went past them a second time because they couldn't see them. They're wearing, black life jackets, and in the water, and it's dark, and they're, a mile from the boat, and, a mile from the shore, and there's nothing, to help illuminate these two little girls. And they screamed, and the search and rescue people told them they had to keep making noise to scream so they could find them. And within probably just a few minutes, they found them. They got to them. By that time, Tiffany and Tylin were so weak that they pulled them into the boat, and Tylin was the first one. My daughter was the first one they brought in, and said it was so hard because she couldn't move. And they just picked her up by her life jacket, threw her in, flipped her legs over. She did a somersault into the boat. They grabbed Tiffany and threw her in, and both of them said that their faces were looking at each other, and all they could think was they're glad that the other one's alive. And they laid crumpled up on the bottom of the boat and couldn't even move. They couldn't move their arms, they couldn't move their legs, they couldn't even turn their heads. They were so weak. They checked their body temperatures, and the report we got was their initial body temperatures were at 68 degrees. And so that is when most people's bodies shut down. And so they didn't have much time left. When we got to the hospital, the doctors told us that at that temperature, usually their heart's going to cardiac arrest, and they probably were just within minutes of their lives. Wow. So anyway, they got her in, they put her on a gurney, they put both Tiffany and Tylin in separate ambulances, warming them up. They got their bodies' temperatures up to between 95 and 96 degrees, and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful search and rescue people. All the volunteers, all the people to search and rescue, big kudos to them. They saved my daughter's lives, and they found the others. When they got their bodies' temperatures sustained, they took them over to Logan Regional Hospital, and the doctor and the nursing staff, Tony, John, and Jake were our nurses, and Dr. Whitaker, wonderful people, and they were just as concerned as we were about the welfare of the others that they had found. While we were in the ambulance, they said that they had spotted the other, another group of 3. We didn't know who it was, but later found out it was Lance, Kathy, and Kylie. And then going through the canyon, we heard they found another pediatric in the water, and at that time the paramedic switched over and turned the radio off. And I'm sure it was because it was not favorable circumstances, and he turned it off. And we got to the hospital. They stabilized us. They let us go. Kathy was brought in probably about a half hour before we were released from the hospital, and so grateful that my daughter knew that Kathy was okay. We chose not to tell our girls anything about the condition. We just told the girls that we'd heard that they were not in good shape. The next morning, we had learned that all of them had been declared deceased, and we sat our daughter up and talked to her. I said, "We need to talk for a minute," and she said, "No." She said, "Which one of my friends died? Was it Sierra or was it Kelsey?" And to have to look at her and tell her that both of them, and that Kelsey's dad died, and that Kelsey's little sister, who my daughter thought she had saved, had died. Heartbreaking. To see her loss. Her first comment after learning that they were gone was she needed to talk to Gary and Kathy and Tandy. She wanted to go see the bodies. She wanted to go see her friends. And of course it wasn't possible at that moment. And anyway.
So how do you believe that they survived? What do you attribute that to?
To each other. These girls were inseparable, and they kept each other going. They kept talking to each other, "We've got to keep swimming." My daughter said that, you always hear that, you got to keep your body heat, you got to keep moving, you got to keep close. And she said for some reason that kept coming back to her. And so she and Tiffany just kept saying, "Okay, we got to get close." And she made the comment that the last time she pulled Tiffany close to her, she couldn't feel any heat. And she was worried about that. And that was just minutes before they were rescued. But I think that they had a strong will.
Did they say something about Jeff and his Facebook talked a little bit about some miracle there that kind of happened of them being pulled out of the boat or something? Or has she said anything about that?
Yeah. The miracle that they're talking about was when they jumped out of the boat. 7-year-old Kylie jumped over and was trying to hang on to the back of my daughter. And of course, panicking, she started pushing my daughter under, and she couldn't keep her up anymore. And the waves were crashing over the top of them, and she thought that she was going to drown. And she said, "Dad, I knew I was going to pass out and die." And she said, I felt angels lift her off of me and then lift me back up out of the water. And then she started pushing Kylie towards the boat as she was swimming, but kept her at an arm's distance to push her towards her mom and dad. And there are so many tender mercies and so many little things that happened that were miracles. And why this tragedy had to happen, we'll never know, but it happened. And our two girls and Kathy survived. And it will be a hard road. Physically, they'll recover quickly, but it will be a hard road emotionally. All their friends that are concerned, people that they don't know, are coming out of the woodwork trying to become, friends on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and but anyway, it's a lot of small miracles happened.
So I guess summing things up, is it that dilemma of being so grateful that your daughter's alive, but yet, tell me what's the tug of war you're doing there? What's happening emotionally?
so relieved to find out that my daughter was alive. So relieved to hear that Tiffany was alive. And you want to rejoice, and you want to just jump up and, shout, yay, my daughter's here, she's alive. But when you learn that these other girls that have been part of your life and your daughter's life, and they've been inseparable, gone, and to know that Kathy has lost, her husband and 2 children. She has, luckily she has Jacob, her son, to help her, move on, but your heart just breaks, and you feel so guilty, because here's this tragedy. They've lost so much, and your heart mourns, and your gut, is just being torn apart that these people have lost so much, but yet wanting to jump up and down because your daughters are safe and sound. And is it fair? No. Is it right? No. But there's a bigger picture there. And there are so many people that have showed so much love and compassion. People that we don't even know doing things for us. Small things, big things. It's a little overwhelming at times. But some of these people, not the same faith, they're just people that we know. Some people we don't even know from different faiths that have done things for us. Wonderful, wonderful people. And there's so much negativity and so much despair in the world these days, that to see this love and this compassion come out from these people, to know there's so much good in the world, and people really are good-natured and have good hearts and good people. You're happy about that, but once again, saddened by the loss of these 4 individuals.
Thank you so much, Lance. Really appreciate that. Thanks for your courage and talking to us here. We're going to get a couple shots.